Hey, I'm David MD, and this is the DAMD Podcast. The views and opinions expressed on the DAMD Podcast do not necessarily represent the official policy or positions of any agency or business. Now let's start the show. One of the things, so the one time I saw one of your shows, I don't know if I've ever seen you at an open mic, but the show that I was talking to you off mic was the volleyball court show. Did you guys actually have a name for that, or was that just like, hey, show up to
the volleyball court show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remembered there wasn't really like a name of the show. I don't think it was just at the IVP Beach House or whatever it's called.
You headlined that, if I remember correctly. So I was trying to be a cool kid, and whoever was left of the crowd for the open mic, I was like, ooh, I'm going to grab something from like somebody, like in kind of improv. You had a story of taking a friend on a cop ride or something like that. Okay. And dude's blowing himself.
Yeah.
I listened to the whole thing, but in my urge to continue a joke, I thought that you guys went to a show where somebody was selling tickets to this. So I start stumbling through this thing that I wrote maybe 10 minutes before I took it up on stage of like, ooh, I want to go to this show. And like, it completely confused the fuck out of the entire audience. And I was like, and then Brittany was like, hey, she actually went on a cop ride along and ended up, I was like, oh, fuck. So
that's so funny. I love that joke. And it's so dirty. And so I don't do it often. I don't get to do it. And I'm kind of scared to do it.
Have you done performances in Utah or
no?
Okay.
No, I would love to go. There's a club in Utah called Wise Guys. Okay. That I grew up going to, and obviously it's moved locations since I was going there, so it's way nicer now. It's super fancy. They have a lot of big comics that come through there, so that's definitely a big goal of mine, is just even to go perform at Wise Guys, just go to like the open mic or whatever. I definitely want to make time this year to go do that.
What's crazy, I found out, because you and I really haven't talked that much. I think I sat next to you during the character development's 3E's writing session. I knew of you, and then I sent a friend request to you, just like trying to network and everything, basically for the podcast. And I just found out today that you've only been doing this for 2 years, and half of that has been COVID. It's seeing where you were at in July. I think it was July was when that show was. You had your shit together back then. I can only imagine like where you're going. Like, it's crazy seeing people that in such short time, like being light years ahead on some things, and like you're fucking killing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've always kind of been comfortable on stage, but it's crazy how I've changed over the past 2 years. Because when I very first started, I feel like you just go through phases. So when I very first started, I was just excited to be up there, and like, you don't really care. Like, you're just so excited, and it just feels so good. Because most of us, I feel like we are comfortable on stage, and like we chase that thrill that we get by getting on stage. And so I was just like so animated and just so excited to be there. Like, I was of course nervous before, and was never nervous like going through my stuff. And I think you have that kind of to fall back on, like, I'm just new, so I don't really give a shit. And there's like an energy that comes with that. And I feel like now I'm like putting so much more pressure on myself. And so I've noticed my stage presence change to where I'm not as animated as I was. I'm like way more serious. And I think it's because I'm in my head, I'm so more conscientious of like all of the things that I have to be thinking about. I'm trying to do better.
Are you wanting to be the animated person, or you want to be more of that?
I think that my character is definitely more animated. Like, a good example of somebody who's not animated, Nate Bargatze. He's one of my very favorite comics.
He just dropped a special too.
Oh, yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I need to check that out. But I follow him on Instagram, so I know it's been coming up. But he is so captivating, and he literally just has that like Southern drawl, like, just I'm a Walmart guy, and but it's just, I don't understand what it is that's so captivating about him. But all I know is that he's an incredible storyteller. He's so captivated, and I love that style. But I don't think that I have that ability.
That is, yeah, because it's a very like downbeat delivery, but yeah, he pulls you in, and it's a different skill, like how he's doing it. I can't think of too many people that do it as well as him. Is you're just like, all right, where's this going? And I actually saw him live. I missed
Really?
Jesselnick. I went to go see Jesselnick, but I had to work that weekend, so I was like, I think I saw Nate's either Comedy Central Presents or like something real quick like that. I was like, cool, I'll go see this guy, and it was a great show. And still, it was like, it wasn't very energetic, where you're definitely not seeing like Bobcat, but it's not like Stephen Wright, where you're just like, he's crawling you through this. It moves so well.
Right.
I wonder how long he's been doing that, because that seems like that took a long time. It would take me a long time to build something like that, where it's just that enthralling.
Yeah.
I
think he's just a good writer.
Yeah. So good. So let's go back a little bit. Usually my first episode with people is finding out who they are for my benefit, for everybody listening and everything. So born and raised in Utah, it sounds like. How was that?
There's a lot, I'm a big advocate for people who have never been to Utah. When I lived on the East Coast, they're like, what's Utah? And I'm like, you have to go there because it's so beautiful.
Okay.
So beautiful. So I always thought that Denver was similar to Salt Lake in the fact that like the city was right up against the mountains, but actually it's pretty spaced out. Whereas, in Salt Lake, like it's like the cityscape is right up against the mountains, and it's just breathtaking. Like it's so gorgeous. There's so much character to that city, and it is becoming way more eclectic. It used to just be like all Mormons all the time, but for the last like 10 years or so, they've really it's really kind of changed the vibe, I guess.
Okay.
And so it's like a really fun, cool city to go to now. And but anyway, it was fun growing up in Utah. There was like a lot of stuff outdoors to do. Like I never felt bored. I never felt like there wasn't anything to do. I mean, I just was like really good at like getting myself into situations.
Yeah, listen to the Bomb podcast this week. Holy shit. That trip to Vegas, oi.
Yeah. So I never lacked any of that. But like I was saying earlier, there is just a big pressure coming from the Mormon culture. Everything when I was growing up was governed by the church. So you always hear about like the liquor laws being super crazy. So, a lot of like
caffeine thing blows me away. Is alcohol, I can understand. A lot of southern states, like, they hate that, but like the caffeine thing, like, that's a bridge too far for me.
So what's really funny, this is going to blow your mind, is that so the word of wisdom is very specific things. So you're not supposed to have coffee or tea. Actually, hot drinks in general, you're not supposed to have. So like you'll catch my dad, Terry Vowels with a Mountain Dew, so they'll drink soda with caffeine in it, but they will not drink coffee. Like my parents were just at my house, and I legit hid my coffee maker. Like I took it upstairs and put it in the bedroom. And
so they're still bought into the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, my dad worked for the church, so he retired from the church, and he's very big into the church. And my 5 brothers, they were all really into the church. They all went on Mormon missions and got married in the temple. And so I was always the black sheep. I was always the excuse me, that was always me. But it was when the internet came out, because my brothers are older than me. My oldest brother is almost 50.
Oh, wow.
So, big age gap, big difference. But it's when the internet came out that then they're like, wait a minute, wait a second, this doesn't all make sense. So that's kind of when they all started coming around to more my way of thinking.
Okay. But
yeah, my parents are definitely still.
So let's jump into the comedy side of it, because like I said, my adulthood has basically been breaking off into atheism and stuff. So we'll get into how you identify now and everything. But let's backtrack a little bit. I'll literally write that down right now. When you were growing up, sound like Looney Tunes. Like let's talk a little bit about your comedic, like the stuff you used to watch as a child. Like let's kind of intertwine like your childhood along with comedy and everything. So you said Looney Tunes during the Bomb podcast. What else was piquing your interest in the comedy aspects?
Honestly, myself. I mean, my personality, and I feel like I've come so far away from that because I spent my childhood like laughing my ass off. So I lived for a long time in Orem, which is like kind of by BYU. In Utah County, and my neighbor across the street, she's my best friend, and she was a few years older than me. So she would have like these projects in school that she'd have to do. She was really into like videography and like filming and stuff like that. And so she would always like wrap me and then her little brother into doing these like film projects with her.
Okay.
So we would like we would just be making home movies all of the time. Like we literally, that's what I spent my time from like 6 years old to 12 years old.
Okay.
Was just home movies of like spin-offs of things and spoofs. Like we made, instead of Batman, we made Fat Man, you know? And so it was me like dressed up in this like Batman costume, but like fat. And then Robin Hood. I can't remember. Batman and Robin. Is that his name?
Batman
Hood?
And Robin.
Oh yeah, Robin. Batman and Robin. I can't remember what we named Robin, but so we were making spoofs all of the time, and we did one on like the Avengers. That was like, this is like a really old show. Yeah. So we were into like, we actually watched like a lot of shows like The Monkees. I don't know if you ever saw like the Monkees. No. It was a show back from like the 50s.
Okay.
I watched a lot of I Love Lucy, like Lucille Ball. So like I said, my parents are older. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So I always had older parents than everybody else. Like my parents were in their 40s when everyone else was in their, you know, their parents were in their 20s. Okay. So I was just like a lot more cultured to like stuff from the 50s. Like Wayne Newton, you know, Bobby Darin, like all this old music. So I watched a lot of black and white shows. So I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball was like my comedic, like hero. You know, I thought she was so freaking funny. And then, yeah, so most of my time was spent versus like watching TV was just out like making fun of stuff and like just laughing.
Speaking of the older stuff, have you talked to Andrew Ingram a lot? So he kind of parallel with you. He was raised by missionaries. So he was talking about the Smothers Brothers, which I'm thinking like last 20, 30 years. And I'm like, I don't remember hearing about Smothers Brothers, and 50s was like when they were like going crazy and everything. So yeah, if you want to talk like old school comedy, that might actually be the person to talk to.
Okay, cool.
That's cool that you're recording. Do you still have copies of all this stuff?
Know, or my best friend has them all, and I need to get them from her. I mean, we've kind of like gone our separate ways. She's stayed in Utah. She's, I think, down somewhere like by BYU. She works at BYU. Okay. And you know, she's very much into that like culture. So I don't talk to her as much anymore. But I think about that all the time, and I'm like, I really want to get copies of all of that stuff that we used to do, because it is
kind of cool going through comedy lane. Like I found my we just moved in this house 2 months ago. Found my old comedy camera from like 2006, and it's cringy as fuck watching like you know a virgin 19-20-year-old talking, you know, out his ass and everything. It'd be cringy, but I would think with kids skits it wouldn't be as cringy because you're not attempting stand up. No. I feel like it'd be more of a cuter,
way different, way different. I mean, I would genuinely still laugh at that shit. Like it was just genuine. I wasn't trying to like fit into any type of thing. I wasn't trying to explain anything to anybody. It was just funny. What was funny, you know?
You're saying, I think it was either on the bomb or it was off air, saying that you had a really rough time in school, like socially and everything. Do you think that was an escape, was doing these skits and like?
Well, yeah. And that's why I didn't really have a lot of friends my age. Like I had like my best friend who, like I said, was several years older than me, and her little brother who was also older than me. That was totally for me, that's exactly what comedy always was, because I always felt out of place. I always felt like I didn't belong, and so that was like my comfort, and that was like I would just crack a joke. So if I feel uncomfortable, I'm just gonna act weird. I'm gonna lean in.
You and I both.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it was.
So you were raised, what, first grade to 12th grade with the same kids and everything. Were you able to, got a weird echo going on here, were you able to get in with kids that were distant at some points, or was it you were just the weird kid in the back always cracking jokes and just like fucking Lou back here?
Yeah. So I lived in Orem from the time I was 6 till I was 12. And yeah, I never fit in there. It was just like super weird the whole time. And then we moved to Bountiful, which is just north of Salt Lake. And when I got there, it was definitely kind of had like a fresh start. And I definitely went through a phase where I was just trying to, fit in. Okay. And I definitely made a ton of friends. So I had a lot more friends then. Like I said, I never was like the popular kid. I had never hung out with like the pretty girls or like the cheerleaders or the popular kids, but I definitely had, I had my friends, and I still have one friend that we met in 7th grade. So when I moved there, her and I are still like best friends.
That's so fucking awesome.
I love that. It's cool to have that.
At what point did you start entertaining like, hey, I could possibly do stand-up? Was there stand-ups that you were watching as a child, like through school, or was this more of a more recent occurrence?
I mean, I definitely get a lot of shit from other comics that I haven't done my homework or studied like the greats as much as I should have. But that just growing up in the culture I didn't, like I said, like I never watched Seinfeld. I never watched The Simpsons. I never, like Richard Pryor, like I never was able to watch those things. Okay. And so, I wouldn't say that I was exposed to as much as some other people. For me, it was just my own personal experience of like, I love to laugh, and laughter is my comfort, and I'm happy there. But it wasn't until I got into my 20s, then I started going to like stand-up shows. Okay. Like I'd go to Wise Guys in Salt Lake and see shows. And so I knew, like when I was 18, I got married. I was very much in that like Mormon culture of like, you have to get married and you have to have kids and you have to do all these things. And so I totally fell into that. And so then I got divorced by like 20. And that's kind of, I had a big chunk there where I should have been like growing up and finding myself, and I wasn't. Okay. So then I really kind of had to catch up in my early 20s. And at that point I was kind of going back and forth with the church. Like I kept like trying to force myself to believe in it and like force myself to do the right thing. So I went through a bunch of years like that. And then, so you
guys obviously attending church, like, or temple, I forget what you guys call it. Is it temple or?
Yeah, the church and the temple. We go to church and then there's a temple, yeah.
And you guys go, is it Sundays? Is it?
Yeah, so every Sunday, and then you'd have stuff during the week, but it's not like full-blown Jehovah's Witness where you're going like every day.
Okay. So at some point, did you start drifting away where you're like, I'm not going to go this week? Or was it a complete like, I'm done with this, like cold turkey kind of thing? Yeah,
I definitely went cold turkey. I mean, I went cold turkey. I got pregnant, and so then I was like, now I really need to get my shit together. And at that point I was 22, and I was like, okay, I got to get my shit together and like go back to church, blah, blah. And then I had my baby, and, ended up marrying my baby daddy because that was the thing to do. So we got married, and so then after that, yeah, it just kind of like shifted into me being like a wife and a mother, even though like I decided to a couple of years later, it was probably when I was like 26 that I finally like totally cut ties off with the church. Okay. but I still kind of just have had like that like wife and mother mindset. So I wasn't really thinking much about myself or what I wanted to do. I worked and put my husband through school. So then he kind of took over and was working while I was raising the baby. But I always knew I like loved comedy, and I don't know. I've always kind of had this thing where it's like I have that mindset where I'm like, well, I'm too old to do it now. Like it's like too late to do it now. If I didn't do it when I was 16, when I was like 20, I was like, I'm too old for it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Then I like came away from the church, and then I really started to like realize that I'm my own individual person outside of these roles that I have to fill. And that's when I, you know, kind of started like doing my own thing. Mm-hmm. And then I started bringing it up that I like love stand up and I want to try it. And then a few, 2 years ago, my friend and I, my best friend that I know from 7th grade, her and I were on a cruise.
Nice.
And there was a talent show. So she signed me up for the talent show.
On the cruise.
So I just like wrote a couple jokes. I had 5 minutes. And this was like drunk people.
Yeah, it's got to be mind-numbing.
Yeah. And so all of the other talent were like dancers and singers and like doing all this stuff. And then I was up there trying to tell jokes and people were just drunk and not listening. But I still had so much damn fun that I was like, I'm doing this forever.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. You're interested in comedy or stand-up comedy at this point. Who are you watching to like build up that steam of like I want to try doing this?
But just the classics like Louis C.K.
Okay.
I love Louis C.K. I love Bill Burr. Like I love dark comedy, even though like I wish I had the balls to do it. But definitely those two. Again, Nate Bargatze, I've been following him for quite some time now. TJ Miller, Amy Wong. I mean, she's always... Is it Amy Wong? I always say it wrong.
I think it's Amy Wong. Let's look it up to make sure we don't have people bitching in the comments section.
Yeah, I think it's... No, shoot. It's Ali Wong.
Ali.
I always say that. Like, I don't sound like I know my stuff, but I'm so bad with names. Like, it's Ali Wong. Sorry.
One of her good friends is Christina P. I don't know if you've seen her on Netflix. It would be crazy because they post pictures, this is pre-COVID, of them sitting in the pool, like just chilling on the weekends and everything. It must be insane watching Christina P. and Ali Wong talk back and forth.
Well, what's funny too is like I know, like I quoted her as part of Ali Wong's set earlier. So what's funny is I can like remember her jokes and I can like say her jokes word for word, but I can't remember her name. That's how much I care. Like I don't give a shit about people's names, but if it's funny, I like it,
So speaking of that kind of reminds me of my early interest in stand-up. At what age did stand-up hit your radar? Like, I'm not saying not leading to that, but like, were you a teenager when you're like, oh, I like this stand-up comedian? Were you in your early 20s?
Yeah, probably my early 20s.
Okay. So for me, I was probably like 10-ish. I memorized Bill Engvall's Here's Your Sign, like beginning to end. Was there somebody that you were able to do that? That's more of a childish thing. I really wouldn't think somebody in their 20s would be like, oh, I can recite.
Well, so Lucille Ball. Like, okay. I love Lucy. She had this, like, monologue in one of these episodes called Vita Vita Vegemin. It was this, like, advertisement for this, like, syrup commercial that she was doing, and I memorized the whole Vita Vita Vegemin bit.
Wow.
Yeah, so I totally did that.
Nice.
It was just a different setup because that was like a sitcom and like a comedic sitcom.
Yeah, when you said Lucille Ball, I was like, because I'm not familiar at all really with her stuff. I didn't really, she did monologues and like commercials and all that stuff.
Well,
too,
so the commercial was on the show.
Okay.
So it was an episode on the show where she ends up doing this. She's married to Ricky Ricardo, who is like this famous guy, and so then she's kind of like in his shadow all the time, and then she gets a chance every once in a while to like shine,
it's cool seeing people in our network going back that far. Is I can do my homework from mid 80s up until now, but like there's people like yourself, Andrew, that like Smothers Brothers, Lucille Ball, like you guys know,
Carson.
Like that's pre-stand-up, really.
Right.
Because Bruce, Lenny Bruce, what was I think he was early 60s. Have you gone to that age or that era of stand up, like looking at Lenny Bruce and everything?
No, I haven't heard of him. I mean, Johnny Carson, I guess, is like.
So without Lenny Bruce, you really don't have modern stand-up, because before Lenny Bruce, it was very, I think it's called Catskills, kind of like traditional stand-up. Where with Lenny Bruce, you start to feel almost Carlin-esque social commentary. This guy was arrested numerous times, banned from numerous states for
Really?
profanity and vulgarity laws.
Wow.
Like, this dude probably would have done life in Utah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
I'll have to
kind of
look
cool.
that up. That's awesome.
It's kind of difficult because we're so far down the road now to go back to the building blocks like this. It's something to study, but like, you're not going to be like, ha, this guy is like Louis C.K. Like, it's
right.
It's kind of homework, kind of like listening to his stuff.
Yeah. The thing I like take from it and I miss from, I'm sure it was his style, was like dressing up, you know, like he'd wear like a suit and a tie, and like he would dress up and like just be like so fancy, you know, when you get on the stage. I feel like the thing now is comics, like it's, you kind of dress down because like you want to give off that like don't give a shit vibe. And maybe that's just like my personal take on it, but I feel like that's more common than not to
see. I've been wanting to do that throwback because like the guys that I don't know, like their stage presentation I like is like Tom Papa, Louis C.K. or not Louis Black, always wearing like a suit and tie and everything. I don't know. I feel like you'd stand out. You know?
Totally. Well, you know who Jonathan Barry is?
I have not heard that name.
So he actually did the show with me at the beach house.
Okay, so I've seen him, but don't remember him.
Yeah,
okay.
Love him. He's like one of my favorite comics here in the Springs. I just think he's so talented. But he wears a suit. And
oh wait, bald guy, lawyer, something.
He's a banker.
Banker. There we go. Yep. Yeah, that was good stuff.
Yeah, he's really talented, but he totally banks off of wearing a suit and like the fact that he's a banker, and he has some really good jokes about it. But he totally stands out.
Yeah,
you know,
it's you're stepping off with a different foot, and people like notice that. You're like right off the bat, okay, this is going to probably be a little different maturity and like all that stuff, and his shit's great.
And you know what, like the big thing for me, I don't know how old Jonathan is, but I have been super self-conscious about the fact that like you were saying, like you kind of started, you know, when you're like early 20s, like 18, 19.
Yeah, even 19, 20ish. Yep.
Yeah. So that's like amazing. And I feel like most big comics, they started at exactly that age. Whereas I'm coming in 10 years later and I've been self-conscious about it. And like, I have like so much catching up to do, and it's really hard to like wrap my mind around it. But then it's like you see Jonathan Barry, and he is so damn funny, and I feel like, but it's because he has life experiences to talk about. So he just has more to talk about. So I feel like that is the benefit of if you do come in a little bit later in life, like you have more to talk about.
Not to name drop, but my wife's uncle is a professional wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page. He started his professional wrestling career at 35.
Wow.
So I was kind of talking to him about how with the stand-ups, one of the big names that stands out for me when it comes to starting late would be Louis Black. He started at the age of 40. Dangerfield started in his 20s, quit for 10 to 20 years, and then like the Dangerfield we know now, he started that in his 40s, flirting with 50s. And then Ron White. But one of the things I was talking to him about was one of the benefits that he liked of being a 35-year-old starting a 15-year-old's game is that he had the work ethic to be the first one in, the last one out training. But also when he finally gets to the road, he's not doing cocaine, drinking excessively, like finding like the new adult things as a 19-year-old. He's finding it at 35. So he's not going out to the bar drinking his face off and everything. And I think I was talking to Jonathan Joubert yesterday, was you have more mental resiliency in your late 20s, early 30s than you do. Because when I was 19, like, whew, I was a kick in the chest if like I wasn't having a good set, you know? So, yeah, you're literally never too old to do stand up. I mean, fucking
right.
Rickles was doing it into
Funny
his
is funny.
70s.
Yeah,
exactly.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think connecting to your audience is a little more difficult as an open micer because we're floating around in our 30s. You got kids like Ledger. I think George is my age, but like you're starting to see the average age of like newer comedians, mid to younger 20s and everything. But I don't know. I feel there is difficult because I know with my material I talk about being a parent, being married and everything, and I have all these single guys drinking at the bar. It's like we'll find our niche.
yeah, the balance.
But so you got your inspirations and everything, and between being inspired and doing your first set on the cruise ship, were you feeling more inclined to, I'm going to talk about my life when I do my first set, or is like, I'm going to do my quirky take on like observational comedy? Like early on, what were you planning on or thinking would be a good set?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've always been more self-deprecating than not, because like I'm scared of making other people feel bad. So definitely more self-deprecating, more just observations, and obviously and this is kind of how we were talking earlier, how I was saying like I've changed over the last couple of years because you go with those jokes that are just naturally funny, so like sex jokes, dick jokes,
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, so definitely like a lot of dick jokes because that's always funny. So now I'm like transitioning, trying to like clean up my stuff. But definitely the dirtier.
So that's what you're doing. I imagine that would have been great on a cruise ship if you're talking about dicks in front of all the drunk people. Okay, so you get off the cruise ship. It sounded like it was a rowdy crowd, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like something struck you. Were like, I got to do this again.
Mm-hmm.
How long was it until you did your next set? Where was it? Let's talk about the second set.
So that I think was like in a January or February of 2019, and then in March I actually had a memory pop up on Instagram from my first set at Looney's that I did like literally 2 days ago. It was like March 7th.
Okay.
Of 2019 that I went to the open mic at Looney's, which is crazy because like 30 comics show up. It's a great crowd. I mean, like it's a full crowd, but you get 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Ouch.
So at that time, I didn't have a lot of material, so that actually like worked for me. I just did maybe like 2 jokes, and I crushed it. Like I did so good. I killed it.
Hell yeah.
And had so much fun. But of course that's like beginner's luck, and then you go somewhere else right after that and eat shit. So
yeah, that's a great
harder.
It's a good thing and the bad thing about stand-up is holy shit. Mm-hmm. Like you can have a great set and then immediately just completely eat shit. Uh-huh. And for me personally, I'll take away the negativity instead of like trying to float on the positive there. With those 2 jokes that you had, were those autobiographical or were those observational?
I think one of each.
Oh,
one
nice.
of each. Yeah, one was just like a joke about me growing up Mormon, and then the other one was a observational dick joke.
I'm a Mormon, but here's a dick joke.
Yeah.
So you did a great job of getting us back onto the religious conversation that I was trying to intertwine in here. What do you identify yourself as these days?
I guess I would say that I'm an atheist. Like I'm not really big on
titles.
I guess titles. I'm not very big on like, as you get to know me, I'm not the most informed person. As bad as that is to say, but I just kind of feel like I just stay in like my own world. Obviously, like I have an open mind. That's my biggest thing is like I try not to be closed-minded for my kids. I just want them to have an open mind because I think like just like get lots of information. But at the end of it, so I don't know technically like what the term for me would be, but I definitely believe in some type of like source or higher power. I have a tendency to relate the word God to guilt. So I just like really panic and don't feel comfortable with that.
So it
Maybe
almost
because
sounds...
I'm a shitty person.
Like I said before, it sounds very Catholic of you. Everything's guilt.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is, man. It's like fear based. I'm sorry, but like that's kind of my take on it.
And that's that. So I'm an atheist, 100% atheist. I identify with that. Is like, why is it the thing that should inspire me to be a good person also makes me feel like such a shit person?
Yeah.
So it sounds like, so agnostic is I don't believe there's a God out there, but I can't prove that there isn't a God out there. It's almost like on the fence kind of thing. Where with atheist, it's like 100% no, there's no God. So it almost sounds like you're floating between being agnostic and spiritual.
Yeah.
That's a fun place to be.
Yeah. Well, it's like I just kind of say the universe. I don't pray. I meditate. I definitely feel like there is some type of source that I connect to. Do I think like the Mormons think that there's like a life after this where like we all, get together in heaven and, like literally polygamy is like a thing in heaven where men like get all the wives and you get like your own planet and stuff.
Sounds like a shit deal for the women.
Yeah. So I really don't plan on like seeing anybody after this. But I don't know,
A woman in the afterlife when Mormon is like, great, I'm on planet Todd.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. At least as long as I don't have to be the one that cleans.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting aspect of it is, if you have so many people on the team, I imagine you do break up the chores and everything.
Yeah. I totally have a joke about that. I'm like, because actually Mormons, it's interesting because Mormons used to practice polygamy and they currently have taken it away to match the laws of the
legal pressure. Yep.
So the legal pressure, they've taken it away, but there's definitely clarification that after you die and like the second coming, whatever, we all go to our kingdoms in heaven, that it's going to come back. So I like made a joke that I left the church when they canceled polygamy because I need help around the house. Nice. I'm like, nobody ever gets carpal tunnel when there's a sister wife around. I don't have to do it all myself.
More hands, less the work, like whatever.
Yes. Teamwork makes the dream work, people.
So what ultimately broke you off where you're just like, all right, I'm going to just float into my own little spiritual like realm and everything?
I think the guilt.
But so it's because I know you sound very rebellious, leaving high school and everything. Watch the Bomb podcast for that. So yeah, I'd imagine because you're going to Vegas, you're marrying questionable people and everything. Was it like, because every time you turned around, it was just like constant guilt of that? Okay.
Yeah, just the pressure. I mean, a lot of things, at first for me, like growing up, it was like the pressure made me feel uncomfortable. But then later on, it did become more like fact based.
Okay.
Like this stuff doesn't make any sense. But ultimately, like what pushed me over was just like my own personal, like I guess relationship or lack thereof. Yeah. Because I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, I'm a human and I'm so imperfect and, I don't know. Like,
and you shouldn't feel guilty about that every time you breathe. Like,
and then you have to like go through all of these steps to like repent. Like, okay, I know, like, there's forgiveness or whatever, but I don't know. It just like that part of it doesn't make any sense to me because there's definitely situations where I guess the breaker for me, sorry, I'm coming to this now. I'm deciding this now.
You're good.
Which happens a lot, is how much of our lives are based off of how our brains are wired.
Okay.
So TJ Miller, for example, right? Like I just like went and saw his stand up at 3's, and before he came into town, like I was like rewatching some of his stuff, and like he had he had brain surgery, like he had all this stuff like going on with his brain, which like caused him to freak out for a while. And that's like literally a huge thing. Like if a part of your brain gets messed up, then you're not like fully conscious, right? So I just think that people make decisions based off of what's in their brain. And if your brain chemistry gets altered, then it's going to change your decision making.
Okay.
Right? So say you get in an accident and like you hit your head and like you forget everything, then how can you be held accountable for those things? Does that make sense?
It's almost the same argument of, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that, when Christian missionaries landed on like Pacific Islands, they convinced these people that they're going to go to hell. It's like, well, if you never landed here, how do they know about this this whole thing here? It feels like that's kind of in the same strand of what you're saying is, if your brain is altered towards that, I kind of feel like we're meeting the same thing. I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like the breaking point for me is, you make decisions based on like your conscious space at that moment, like with what you know in that moment. Mm-hmm. And so how can that be like, how can there be like a black and white? Like, I feel like there's so much, and it's actually David Cho. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a Korean artist. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast. Listen to it. David Cho.
Okay.
That episode is literally one of the best Joe Rogan podcasts I've heard. It's like super long and they take like 5 different huge turns and it's just so, I listened to the whole thing and I have really bad.
Is that in the new studio or is that one of the older episodes? Okay.
Yeah. He's been on there a couple times, but his latest one. And he was talking about how religion like trained his brain that there's like, it's like black or white.
Yeah.
And like having that mindset is really hard because you're constantly panicking because you feel like you have to like identify everything one way or another. And that's not the case. You don't always have to do that. Like sometimes it's going to be gray. Sometimes you're not going to know. Sometimes like it could be right for one person and not for another. And
it's to me, I interpret everything as gray. Every good and bad is subjective on every, because one of the points that I have made numerous times is the person that prays to God to water the fields is inadvertently praying to God that the homeland of another person is going to flood out and kill them. Is like your perception of like prayer, like that could go either way depending on what side of that argument you're at.
I have an example of this that like I totally forgot about. This blew my mind. This is right on this. So I was watching some documentary for like 5 minutes about, I just clicked on it. It was like some like drug cartel documentary. Okay. And it was like, they were like down in Mexico, like interviewing this cartel guy. And he was like packing up he was like hiding all of the drugs in the car, and he's like, I just pray to God that this like gets across the border, right? Because this is his means of like living.
Yeah. He's feeding his family.
He's feeding his family. And I feel like a lot of people are in that situation. I mean, obviously, like, I don't support like that is your means of income, but that's like his situation. And he literally was like, I'm praying to God that this makes it across. And I was just like, how interesting, because that's his means of eating. That's his food, but then how much backlash is that going to cost?
How many people from that shipment through the supply chain and everything, like, because there's some fucking shiesty dealers out there that cut that shit with other stuff. Like,
somebody's gonna die.
It's exactly your prayer to get that across the border is eventually going to lead to somebody dying because of some other shiesty dealer and everything. Like,
it's
that
weird.
Fucking your mind if you look at it, indifferently. So weird. And this happens, your separation from the church, like you're coasting away from that. That was your early 20s, right? Wow. That's about the same time I did mine too. Mine was I got into my current employment trying to be like a good Christian.
And what religion did you grow up as?
And that's why I don't remember. My mom, I know
Christian.
She was always, Christian and everything, but I forget what flavor, because there's like 32 flavors and everything. She's like, I know it wasn't Lutheran. I'll look it up and go from there. but I got to my my first location on my job, and lost my virginity, had a kid in the process and everything, and it went sideways pretty fucking quick while she was pregnant. And my biggest thing is I wanted the proper American life. I wouldn't even say Christian life, but proper American life is, what's that? A nuclear family, mom, dad, kid, that stuff.
Simpsons.
And it just wasn't going. Everything was going fucking sideways, and the worse it got, the more I tried to pray, and it just nothing was clicking, nothing was turning around, even though I was trying to do the right Christian thing, all this, that, and the other. And what was it? July is when we broke up. January, February is where I was starting to be like, fuck this. Like, the depression was really starting to hit. It was January of 2009. And it got to the point where praying every day, fuck it. I made a decision. I think it was like a Friday night. Like, if things don't turn around by Sunday night, I'm killing myself Monday morning. I'm not going to work. And things did not turn around. I show up to work anyway because I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to kill myself. Like,
right. I haven't thought this out yet. I gotta make a plan.
We'll put a pin in that, and maybe next. Everything starts on a Monday, right?
I'll go back around next week. Maybe I'll try it Thursday.
Let's see. MASH is on Monday. Try working around TV schedule. But one of my coworkers, real just like offhanded comment, just like, hey, you'll get through this, or a really short, like, just throwaway comment, turned my life around completely. But one of the things that I was like, okay, God and religion are not saving me from this complete hell on earth, and basically kind of turned agnostic for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But through like self-reflection and everything, is like, I never really truly deep down in the center of my being like believed this stuff, Right. I met my ex-wife. She was 100% like atheist, and I described that to her, and she's like, "You're an atheist." I was like, "I don't want to go with labels, like
right.
all this stuff."
Yeah.
So move in with my now ex-wife, go on a business trip, and on a business trip I'm just bored to fucking tears, so I'm looking up like atheist stuff, and on a message board, my ex-wife and I were kind of joking around about the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I've heard of it.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's basically a troll like thing. Because I think the background on that was Kansas State's like education board. Their thing to get around to have religion taught in science was all perspectives have to be taught. So basically, it's like, okay, we teach evolution, but then immediately has to go with like Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve and all that stuff. So a trolling person said, well, if that is going to be entertained, I want my religion of the Flying Spaghetti Monster to also be taught. It's hilarious. But I was going through, it was either an atheist message board or whatever, but somebody was talking about on their military dog tags having Satanists on there. And I was like, Satan, like you've always heard about it because like, yeah, the satanic scare and everything. I'm like, oh, this devil worship and everything.
Conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, fucking eating babies and shit. Yeah. But the way the person wrote, because several people replied to that, was like, oh, like basically saying the shit like, oh, you're drinking blood, all this stuff. And you're like, no, just read up on the Satanic Church. And basically modern Satanism is kind of the same approach as the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Is we're atheists and we're trying to shock people. And what's the most shocking thing that you can do to a Christian is say, I'm a Satanist. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So if you look at the Satanic Church, which the person that started the Satanic Church, Anton LaVey, he's just, there's a lot of things that made sense, but there were several things that you're like, okay, fuck this guy. Whereas like, he's like, your body's of your own will and everything, but he's also one of those things, if you're dumb enough to get knocked up, you shouldn't have the right to have an abortion. So like he's making sense, and then he like makes these dumbass like sidetracks and everything. I found out about the Satanic Temple, which is more of a community that has their shit together. They're challenging a lot of states at state levels. Because right now, Texas, there's literally a court decision trying to happen right now. Texas is really trying to limit abortion rights and everything, right to choose and everything. So they're more of it's almost like a religion of the law. Is these guys are trying to poke arguments into all these. They were trolling the Oklahoma states thing because they had the 10 Commandments on the property of like the Capitol and everything. So this is one of those things like they're legislative, legislative religion basically. But that's basically where I went from Christian to atheist to basically a flavor of atheism. I'm still trying to figure out how to court this with my mother because my mom's 11 years later, still does not know that there's a satanic flag over your head right now.
If you were into painting your nails black, I would be down for it. I think that you should do that.
Just start going with the whole image and everything.
Yeah.
Well, once I get out of my current profession, that's 100% happening. The hair's gonna be even longer. I'm gonna grow out my hair. Because I was born and raised in the military with my dad in the Army, so he always wanted to keep that conservative image with that. You know, like I said, this is the longest my hair's ever been. Even when I was in high school, I grew my hair out. It still had to be like a specific length and everything. So
gotta go rogue.
Definitely not as conservative as like the Mormon church, but like it's still kind of. I could see how we kind of relate with stuff. I didn't go as hard on the paint with my rebellion. I really didn't have rebellious years, but holy shit. And really, I, on the comedy writing side of it, haven't really decided to go that way because one of the bombs that you were talking about on the other podcast was introducing that you don't believe in God in front of a crowd that you've never met. I've always been afraid. I've had that fear. I've never entertained that kind of material.
Yeah. Because it's like you just like you are so used to the way that you think. So you don't realize like how offensive it actually is.
It's so weird that's offensive. It's like I'm not up here to preach. Don't believe in God. I'm not trying to force
anybody else.
Yeah, and I don't know. Welcome to America, I guess. So with that bomb, did that scare you away that you're never going to speak of anything religious, or you figure you got to repack it? Because it sounds like you have a fucking gold mine between your rebellious years, being raised in a specific church and everything.
Yeah. I think it's more just about winning the crowd over, letting them get to know me first, and, you know, showing them that I don't have like a bad intent and that I'm not out there to like hurt anybody, you know. So I think that it can be brought up, but the writing has to be better.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk about it, but I am definitely going to skirt around like my actual like thoughts on the matter.
I think if you draw them in with the parenthood thing, maybe the rebellious thing, and then kind of transition into that, like obviously open mics and you know low attended shows might really help you out polishing how to get through that. Because you said you went to a different town. How big of a crowd was that?
A big crowd. I mean, it was like it was like a sold out show. So I should have crushed it. But yeah, they just, you know.
But I got to give you a round of applause for being in the game less than 2 years. And you said you recovered that show by end of the time, the set.
Yeah, I had to claw my way back. And I mean, I definitely like had them a little bit. I got it back, but it was never as good as it could have been. But I had people come up to me after like, hey, like you were funny, you know?
That's good.
And like one person was like, one guy was like, I'm just like amazed at like your confidence. Like you just powered through that because like it was clearly rough, you know? And I just kept going. But the huge thing that's like the game changer that I'm learning is that if the crowd doesn't laugh, it's because they either don't agree or they don't understand.
Yeah.
So you have to acknowledge that. So if it's like crickets and they're not laughing, you have to acknowledge them. Because if you ignore them, then if you do it a couple times, they'll start to ignore you.
Yeah.
So it's just about calling it and saying like, oh, you know, like, was that offensive or whatever? Like, am I going to get struck by lightning right now? Like, say something. And so that, like, I didn't acknowledge it. And we all knew. And it's just like, if you separate yourself from the crowd, there's going to be that disconnect. And it's all about just like,
yeah, performing in a phone booth is what I call it. I saw Nikki Glacier live at the Stress Factory, and it felt like you could have put her in a sound booth, and she would have done the exact same set and the exact same delivery. I don't know if she's having a bad night. I don't know if that's Nikki Glacier usually, but yeah, I've noticed that where you need to acknowledge, the turd on the floor, basically.
Right.
And the shitty thing is, though, is that's a fine line, too, is if you're continuously bombing joke after joke and you continuously turn back to shit on it. I've noticed that where that's bitten me in the ass, too.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, do you have any good material? Because because I guess it's the rule of threes. Is you can only shit on yourself 3 times before you're like, okay, this is the shit set and you're a shit comic. But you have the ability to push through rough sets. I'm kind of jealous of that.
Oh.
With me, if the first joke doesn't go out well, it's like, okay, hopefully the second one does. Once the second one like just does not land, I just start staring at my feet and I will physically get through it.
Ugh.
But like how you were able to get a crowd back through delivery and everything, I really got to commend you on that, especially being in less than 2 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think like we definitely all feel the way that you feel, and I'm sure that you actually probably handle it better than you think you do, because you're your biggest critic, so you're totally in your head about it. But yeah, I mean, I think like, you just try to have like a joke in your head, like, okay, like I know this one always works. Like Iggy, this guy that I work with out of LA, he is like so big on having pillars. So he's like, you have to have your pillars in your set. So you can have like your shit in between, but you have to have a joke that you just know is gonna freaking crush it.
That makes sense.
And so it's like, but it's like you get to the point where you hate like pulling up old material. Like I get tired of doing my old jokes. Like I'm trying to work on new stuff, but then I just eat shit with the new stuff. So then I have to go back to the old stuff, and it's annoying. But at least like you end strong, and it's like, well, all the other comics just judged me, but at least the crowd laughed. Like, yeah,
the safety blanket of old material. It eventually gets to the point where like, man, I fucking hate doing this material. Is I know it was good, but like I don't connect to it.
You're not that person anymore.
Yeah, and I have probably a dozen bits that I know work on most of the time. I'm tired of doing them.
Well, see, I love that. I love that you're just like, you know what? I'm committed to this. I'm committed to this material. I'm gonna eat shit, but I'm committed. I'm committed to it. That's like another strength in and of itself, because sometimes I'll bail. Like if I don't feel like I'm doing well and I really need to work on a joke and it's just at an open mic, like I really should do the joke because I need to work on it, but I bail. I'm like, I get scared and then I just go back to old material because I don't want to deal with the bomb.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. So
that again, it's a good thing and a bad thing though, is so when I was in New Jersey, I made the mistake of thinking that I had to kill every time I get up there. And I was doing the same fucking material for open mic after open mic after open mic. And it's got to the point where I was the smoke break comic. Where you're like, oh, MD's going up on stage. Everybody head to the fuck. I've literally performed in front of the host and the sound guy before. 2 people in the fucking room. And I was like, I get it. You guys have heard the shampoo joke. You've heard the fucking name joke. Like,
well, I'm glad that you do that too. That's like good to know because I definitely have done that.
I think the safety blanket material needs to happen at paid show, like the shows that you did at the volleyball courts. Like, that's where your safety blanket needs to come in. But you got to let it hang out and explore at open mics. And I'm finally realizing it. I'm still scared shitless. There's most of my sets that I write for open mics, it's still like I said, 3 pillars. Like, all right, I'm gonna have this beginner, this middler, and this closer that are all safe material that I know is gonna work. But there's some sets where I have one brand new thing, and as soon as it bombs, like, well, I'm never doing that ever again, and I keep going back to my fucking safe set.
Yeah.
I really got to get out of my own way with that stuff. We're open micers. We're here to fall on our faces numerous times to actually figure out what succeeds.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that it's like, I think I give other comics like so much grace, like, and not that, like anybody's worried about that, but I don't give a shit. Like when I see other comics bomb, like that doesn't take away from my like respect for you or my value for you.
I think that's what I need to remember too.
And so in my head, that's more what I'm concerned about. Is I'm so concerned about what the other comics are gonna think. Like, oh, there's Lou, like doing her same bullshit, or there's Lou like not being a good writer or whatever. But then I think about like, do I give a shit about what other people doing? No, because like I'm too worried about what I'm doing. So for me, that's more, it's not even the audience I'm concerned about at open mics, it's the other comics.
Yeah.
So that I gotta just get out of my way.
Well, and seeing off of your Facebook, your post there, seeing how packed the 3Es room was that comics and civilians like mixed together? Was that all comics?
No, that the ones like that you saw in the audience, all the comics were behind me, so that was all an audience.
Get the fuck out of here.
So the thing with that is,
that was like 50 people in that shot.
Yeah, David Gamble told me this like a couple weeks ago because we were going to promote a show, and he's like, if you get the college kids, you get the whole damn college. So that's like you got to be promoting to. So like half of that crowd, there's this one new kid, and he comes to I've only seen him at 3Es, and he like crushed it. He's super talented. But he brought all of his friends. So they're all in college. They don't got shit else to do. They love to have a good time. So he like packed half of that room.
Fuck.
So but he consistently comes and he consistently brings people. Like it's like that like every week. So then we have the other half of the room that's like other people. So I'd still say without that there's a good audience. But you get a college kid like sold out.
Yes. Man.
But then you
got
have
me
to
all
pander
excited
to
now.
Now you got it. Well, at least now you got to pander to the college kids.
Well, and that's the shitty thing, though, is we're both parents. We're both in our 30s, have marriage material and stuff. Is like, that's where the age could hinder you, depending on. I guess you'd have to go more towards observational or speak of your past, because the mix that I'm trying to do is you're talking about more of the darker material. Have you ever heard of Christopher Titus? Great guy when it comes to dark material, because he was a rebellious kid too, broken home, stopped drinking at the age of 16 because he fell into a bonfire. Like really good stuff. Wow. I want to do a mix of that and Bill Engvall, which is more of the family comedy, not really family. Well, it could be definitely family friendly, but like I want to have family comedy with a bite to it. That's a blend I want to go. You gotta check out Christopher Tice. I'll send over his. For the longest time, I couldn't find a copy of my favorite set of his. Went and saw him live. Bought his box set for my wife bought my. Thank you, Sam. $50, and then he within months of us buying that and seeing him, he put it all online. I'm like, oh fuck you. But yeah, really great comedian. Man. I'm learning so much. Literally, just sat next to you, had no idea who you were. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I get just unpack this whole thing.
Oh yeah, I'll just talk your ear off.
So. With the cosmetology, did you start that in vocational school in high school, or did you start that out of high school?
After school, I was probably like 18.
Okay. So you paid that out of pocket, or did you get in that grant, or? Yeah,
I just got a loan and like paid off the loan.
Nice. So where'd you go for Cosmo school?
It's called Taylor Andrews. It's in Utah. I don't even think it's still there.
Okay.
At least the one that I went to is not still there. But, yeah, that's...
So what grabbed you with the cosmetology? Was it makeup? Was it hair?
Yeah, I guess just like it's... Like I said, like there's like a big standard in Utah to like look a certain way. And so it's really big there. It's kind of like the thing that like girls do. Okay. Like there's like everybody... It's like you're either like a dental hygienist or a,
So that's a big industry for cosmetology is in Utah. Like everybody's getting their hair done. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I just wasn't ever a good student. So I knew that I couldn't go and like do book work. Like I'm just like, if I don't like care about something, it's just in one ear and out the other. Like I cannot retain information. I don't give a fuck. Like I can't. And so it was easier for me to be able to do something that like even through school I was like using my hands and I was like moving around versus just listening to somebody like just talk at me.
Yeah.
So that's probably why.
I think that's what my wife appreciated. Was it was a nice balance of there is some crazy stuff that people have no idea that hairstylists and like all these people know. Like it's basically chemistry, it's fucking mathematics. Like there's a whole bunch of shit going on there. But being able to get behind the chair, you know, at the end of the day or for a week or whatever, like it's got to take the edge off of that book work.
Yeah.
How many hours did you have to do in
2,000.
Utah?
It's a high hour state. Yeah, we had to do 2,000 hours, so it took me forever because I was working and going to school, so I went, you know, part-time, so it took me a while. But yeah, and then I worked in a salon for a few years and it just got...
So the social aspect on the salon, because
yeah,
the cosmetology industry is known for a difficult workforce.
Yeah.
Did you have difficulty like connecting with coworkers and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Or,
The coworkers, like the customers. Like I don't know why I got into it really, because like I said, I grew up with 5 brothers. I'm like, that's just kind of like my mindset is, I don't know. It was very hard to, I'm like not like a girl's girl. I have nothing wrong with women. I love women. You know, and like I have a lot of, well, okay, I have like a few friends, and I wouldn't say I would never be friends with women, but it's just like I've never been like the girl with like all of the girlfriends.
So like, when you were to go hang out with somebody, you'd rather hang out with a group of guys instead of a group of girls. See, I'm the exact opposite too, where I'd rather hang out with a bunch of women. I fucking hate talking to a bunch of dudes. It's just mind-boggling. But you appreciate talking to a bunch of dudes, though.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you know, and this is like something that's always just been really consistent with me, and I love that my husband has supported me through this, because like when I met him, I was living in a house with 5 guys. Okay. They were like all my best friends, and we had that was like the time of my life, was after I got my divorce, and you know, I moved in with these friends, but no guys would date me because I lived in a house with 5 guys, and so they're like, oh, you're just sleeping with all these guys, and would just be like really like turned off by it. And that's just always been how I am. Like most of my friends have just always been men, you know, like my best friend now, like one of them, Sean, he's like just this, I met him at the gym. We go to the gym together, and people like feel like that's odd. You know, like they think that that's super odd.
It's just an energy thing. Like I know for me, hanging out with guys, I'm just like, can I just kill myself now? Like but I know, like, speaking to like my wife and a lot of the other women, that there's times where women with women energy is just like unbearable. Like you got to be able to balance each other out, you know? Yeah. So
for sure. Well, I mean, I feel like the older I'm getting, like the more I appreciate other women, because like you start going through this like weird phase, you know, where like you think you like know yourself and you don't. You think you like know your body, and then like your hormones change and like shit gets weird, and it's just like a different vibe. So then you're like, I need like other women to guide me through this weird shit.
I think it's the energy thing, but it's also an age thing too. I've always hung out with the older, like when I went to my grandparents' house, I wasn't hanging out with my cousins. I was like trying to be with the conversation with, you know, the older generation. Yeah, that's me. So when I, you know, got into my current profession, hanging out in my 20s and everything, I was like, 20-year-old, it's just stupid energy. We're trying to drink everything, fuck everything, and, you know, measure everything. I was like, I don't have that competitive need to outdrink, outfuck, out anything. Right. Like, you do you, I'll do me. So, and with, you know, women, it's a different thing, like different energy and everything.
Well,
so.
You know, I think too, I don't know, because like I'm not very good at small talk. Like, you know, how are you? How's their day? Like if I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to have like some like deep, weird conversation. And so I think that is kind of like a turnoff for people, because I'm so socially awkward at first. And then I just like get you like right in the freaking like gut.
I've told my wife because when we went to our baby shower in New Jersey, she had numerous friends be like, "Does your husband not like me?" And I told my wife, I was like, "You know what? From now on, just tell people I'm autistic."
He's on the spectrum.
Yeah, because if you don't pull me in, like I can't do small talk.
Yeah.
If we're gonna talk, it's got to be UFC, it's got to be Formula One, it's got to be astronomy, religion. Like I gotta speak of something in depth.
Right.
It can't just be little horse shit.
Right, exactly.
You know, I don't want to talk about this week's news. I want to talk about this century's big name or this century's like. Give me much bigger things that we talk about and interpret.
Right.
Especially if it has anything to do with modern politics, just fucking shoot me right now.
Oh God, I don't know any goddamn thing. Yeah, I don't know anything.
You're so lucky.
I don't know anything. Yeah, and I really try to keep it like I don't watch the news. Like the only time I see the news is when my parents come over. They come into town and then they just have the news on the whole day. I'm like, do you need me to bring in another TV so you can watch 2 different news channels at the same time?
Oh, so they go back and forth.
Oh yeah, they just watch it all. If it's the news, they're fucking watching it. You know, like it doesn't matter. Like I think it's just like the tone of like the voice, like is calming for them or something. That like news voice. I don't know, but that's the only time I watch the news or like have any clue.
You're so lucky. For me, my morning routine, like wake up, hate that I'm awake. Jump on Facebook, make sure that, all of this stuff is still afloat with the podcast and everything. And then I jump to CNN to see what the complaining news network wants to talk about. And I jump over to Fox, see what the crazies want to talk about. and there's studies now showing that hyper partisan news does brain damage. I'm starting to feel it. If that's the thing you're doing within 45 seconds of waking up, you either have to be brain damaged or you're going to be brain damaged by the end of it. So, lucky you.
I think part of it too is I'm like, I like really take stuff in, like if I get something, I'll hold on to it for like the whole day.
And that's what my wife is if it's something stresses her out about the news, it's just
weighs on me.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the female versus male mind is men are able to compartmentalize dumb shit where, y'all kind of like live on a continuous, path and you start to snowball shitty news in the morning.
Yeah, that's like that. Well, yeah, like just like you were saying, like how your wife, like she like, researches something and then she takes like all the bad out of it. Like I'm a total hypochondriac. Like if like I hear somebody on the news, like something happened to them, I'm like, that's probably happening to me. Like I probably have those symptoms
COVID
right now.
COVID must have been a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I'm like, am I dying? Like I can't breathe. What's going on? So yeah. And same. I'm like, if there's an earthquake across like the world, I'm like, is the earth shaking? Like, is it here now? It's like, I can't, I will literally like be crippled with anxiety and not function.
Damn. That's where all the weed comes in, right?
Yeah. Yes. Just so much weed. Just stay in my lane. Stay in my box with the weeds, and I'm good.
Hot box the box, right?
Yeah, totally.
Oh man. So we're trying out numerous things. We did videos and several podcasts. Now we're gonna try Would You Rathers.
Oh yeah, okay, I love this.
So what we'll do is we'll do 5 original Would You Rathers, and then I have the greatest hits. That'll be the sixth question and final question.
Okay.
People have seen these before, but like I'm trying to do like greatest hits and everything. So, Are you ready?
Yeah. Here
we go. All right. Would you rather have your failures broken down on SportsCenter nightly, or would you rather you're a walking human magnet that attracts all metals and ruins all electronics? That's a weird one.
Oh my gosh, this is so much harder than I thought it would be. Probably the magnet, honestly, because I mean I wouldn't last a day if my like just I guess, but then you could like alter it and you would just try to like be better. I guess I'd be a way better person if my failures were going to be cast.
See, I think I would troll. I'd be like, oh, you think that was funny yesterday? Let me see how fucking dumb I can get.
I do love that idea. You've changed my mind. I think, I guess I'd rather have my failures and then just change my mindset.
The magnetic thing, I mean, everything's metal and plastic these days, but I mean, we all live our lives, I'm literally within touching distance of 4 or 5 screens right now. Like, you couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
you
true.
know?
That is true. There is a lot of men. I don't know. I just have such a fear of like people knowing I clearly obviously have a huge fear of what other people think. So we just call that out. That's great.
Okay, so which one are we going to go with?
I guess my failures on the TV. On the TV.
Do you watch any sports?
I love football. I'm
Nice.
like a really big, but just the NFL. Like fuck college. I don't watch any college football.
Anytime, so like I'll watch the records throughout the season. Is like I don't have time to sit down and watch, a game 15 seconds at a time for fucking 4 hours. Mm-hmm. Usually I start paying attention near the playoffs and everything. But who's your team?
The Chiefs. I'm a big Andy Reid fan. I love that little tomato of a man. I just love picturing him eating chicken wings on the side.
God, now I want chicken wings.
Yeah, I mean, he like coached at BYU for a long time, and I just like so I was a fan before they won the Super Bowl, and I really just like wanted him to win a Super Bowl, so that was pretty cool.
Well, once Mr. Brady puts it away, maybe the Chiefs can go on a good. Because the thing is, who's that? Holmes. I mean, he's got his shit together.
Yeah, he's really talented.
He's just,
for like how young he is.
Yeah. He just keeps getting cock blocked by Brady.
Yeah, I just don't like Tom Brady because like I watched this video where he like kisses his kids.
Yeah, a lot of people are hung up on that.
Just judged him for that. Yeah, it's weird, like I don't know.
What got you into the Chiefs though, growing up in Utah?
Pretty much just Andy Reid.
Okay,
being the coach.
Was he was a Phillies coach for the longest time, right? Eagles, the shitbirds, as I like to call them.
Yeah, I grew up actually watching the Colts because that was my dad's team. I don't know exactly why, but so growing up, yeah, I watched a lot of the Colts, like the Saints, like just like random, because there's no football team in Utah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who the closest would be. The Chargers out of LA, maybe. Or no, the Raiders.
No, or the Broncos. I feel like a lot of people in Utah are like Broncos fans because it's, right there. Yeah, because
Utah's a bordering state, right? Mm-hmm. Bordered with Colorado. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, that must have been a rough Super Bowl because that was a non-starter. Like the Super Bowl just happened too. Like just died early.
Yeah, that was just gross. Like I don't. That whole thing was just sad.
Yeah,
so sad because they just came in like so strong, like thinking it was just going to be different, like way different, and I don't know what happened. I feel like they just didn't show up. Like Patrick Mahomes always shows up, but the rest of the team was just not fucking.
Yeah, it looked like they just had an off week, but it was the most important week of the fucking season.
Right? I think they forgot.
Oh yeah, Super Bowl this week. Fuck.
Yeah, that's this week. I'm sorry.
I've been a huge Formula One guy. That is one thing I'll sit down and watch because that's like a 2-hour just race of insanity. So if you want to get into Formula One or you're mildly interested, there's a Netflix documentary series about it. It's really good. It focuses on the racers. And I know my wife is all the sex appeal because these are little like 20-year-old kids. Like I know, like take your shirt off. Like that's kind of like my wife's vibe on all of those drivers.
The butts. So. I'm in it for the butts.
Well, these guys are almost like jockeys. You know, how, like horse jockeys are like really, really small. That's basically what a Formula One driver is. Just these rail thin guys. That you're like, okay.
Like she's like not into midgets, but
more or less,
but close. Something close you can put on her nightstand.
She could. Alrighty, second question. Would you rather maintain 5 different families while keeping them all secret from each other? That sounds terrible.
That'd be so hard.
That's the thing. One family is exhausting. Fucking 5? What do? Do you have one on the week? Well, you have 5. I was going to say do one on the weekends, do one during the weekdays, but you got to constantly.
I would mix up everyone's names. Like, why do you keep calling me Charlie? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know Charlie.
I relate to that. I'm terrible with names. Terrible with names.
I mix up like my dogs and my kids. So like that, I would just be like, I don't know your name.
There's a boxer. I think he named all of his kids the same name. Mm-hmm. Either that's a sign of brain damage or
awesome.
Just lazy as fuck.
That goes back to that brain wiring, dude. Like, his brain's probably broken.
Yeah.
But my thing is like, okay, but who is like supplying the kids for these families? Okay. Because like if it's me, I would probably be dead. Like there's no way I could physically produce enough children for 5 different families.
Yeah.
If I was the guy, it would be different. But
Spread
to have like a
seed.
woman with like 5 different guys and like all these kids, I mean, Jesus
That's
Christ.
the thing. How do you do that as a mother?
It
Because
wouldn't be physically possible.
yeah, you have to take care of the first family. And then you disappear to take care of a second. Who's taking care of the first?
Yeah, and
you're doing that 3 more times.
Yeah, for 9 months. It's physically like, okay, so men totally have an advantage over women there.
Even that's fucking exhausting though, because you leave one family because like the wife's annoying you, and then you go, and then the girlfriend, like that's too much drama. There's too much drama in one family, let alone fucking 5.
Right.
And then do you entertain the in-laws too? Do you have 5 fucking sets of in-laws that you got to deal with?
That's a really good point. So far, I mean, this is not a hot option.
No,
so.
It's so easy though. The next option is: would you rather live in a hamster ball? I would put the hamster ball.
I mean, I get really like motion sick, but as long as you get me some Dramamine, I'm about the hamster ball.
What sucks is bringing those to a stop. Is like
Right. Right. I'd just crash into stuff. I mean, no shit's given. Like, whoops. Sorry.
You'd be able to run to Taco Bell much easier. You won't get hit by the car.
Yeah.
Have you I think that was on the bomb. That's how you tease the other podcast. Are you very conscious now at to doing right on reds?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, where's me?
Yeah.
Where's me about to get hit?
I'm very conscious, like as a driver and a pedestrian. Once you've been hit by a car, I mean, it's no joke.
And you got ran over too.
Yeah, like straight up, and then he pulled around me. Like, come on.
My dad told me, was it my dad or my mom telling me that my dad was hit by a car picking up a dime out of the street. He like went to go pick it up and.
Oh, he's so shiny.
Yeah. Well, my parents are just hoarders, so they're like, ooh, something of value. I'm going to pick that up. Cost them 10 cents and a fucking trip to the emergency room.
Oh, that's amazing.
Question number 3. Would you rather everyone knows everything about you, absolutely everything, which kind of ties into the Sports Center question, but like they know they don't have to watch every day.
Right.
Like they know everything about you, period. Or would you rather the elderly people seek you out in order to die in front of you? That's kind of dark.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm pretty curious about death, so I feel like that would maybe like answer a lot of questions. Like I'm like, hey, wait, what are you seeing right now? Like
that is an interesting question. And do they see different things based off of their religion?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would find that really interesting, but it would also be like super depressing.
Depressing and inconvenient.
And inconvenient.
You're at the grocery store yelling at your kid because they keep throwing cereal in there, and then like, hold on a second. Like, fuck. All right, fucking wrap it up, Grandma.
I'm making out with my high school crush, and I'd be like, oh, thank God.
yeah. Anything to break up this kiss. Like.
Oh, I don't know. I guess everything know everything about me, because that would just be way too time consuming the other way.
And the thing is, they'd wake you up in the middle of the because people die in the middle of the night.
Right, all hours of the day. Yeah.
Hello?
I'm trying to take a shower here.
Somebody, I forget whose said it was. If they knew exactly when they were going to die, they would run in front of a crowd and be like, if I'm lying, God will strike me down or some shit, and then like fall out. That's the thing. The elderly would know when they're dying. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that would be cool. I guess not really. I don't know.
No, that would fucking suck. So which one would you go with? It's you said the everyone knows everything about you. Yeah, that seems as more. The good thing with that is you would save a lot more time. Because like a podcast, you wouldn't have to do a podcast because now everybody knows everything about you already.
Right.
Like there is a lot of stuff. It'd be easy to do like registering your car. They know everything about you, so they can just fill it out for you.
Just walk up.
Yeah.
Here
I'm
I
here.
am.
Like, yeah, I know you're here.
Okay,
Here's
cool.
your stuff filled out. Like,
Cool, yeah.
yeah, I think there is some things that would be awful about it. Like, they know like your weird kinks and all that stuff, but they also know your name. So, like, yeah, I think administratively that'd be very convenient.
I didn't even like think about that at all. You're like, paperwork?
Yeah.
Great.
You fill it out. You do all this loan fucking everything. God,
Let's buy like 20 houses.
well, that's the shitty thing though too, is now that everybody knows everything about you, now they can steal your identity.
Oh, right. That's
Fuck,
true.
man. This is a multifaceted would you rather. Like, the further you pull the string, the more you start to
we
realize
can spend hours on
how
one.
shitty that one is.
Right. We need to like take this to like debate class, and have the kids debate about it.
Some of these are kind of fucked up for kids too. So.
Yeah, perfect. Good.
Would you rather
Things
get
to know.
mauled by the Care Bears
Oh,
or
Care Bears, yeah.
Adele and Taylor Swift each write entire albums about how much they hate you?
Oh fuck! I fucking hate the Care Bears. Definitely, I love the Care Bears. Hate Taylor Swift. Adele's all right.
Adele is, wow, that's a lot of heaviness. Because she did the first one at 19,
Yeah.
and she's already gone through like crazy emotional breakups and everything.
And she lost
Have you
all that
seen her
weight.
lately?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
holy
looks good.
fuck.
Yeah, she looks really good. I thought she was pretty before though. Like,
Yeah, she carried it well.
yeah.
It wasn't like
Mhm.
she was like, who was the beauty pageant? She drank the Mountain Dew. Fuck, what's the name of it? That reality show. Boo Boo,
Oh,
Honey
yeah,
Boo Boo.
Honey Boo Boo.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like not like Adele was hanging out
Right.
like that. Like,
Right. Yeah. No, you could tell she was like still healthy, I guess, kind of. But I feel like some people look better fat. Like
Yeah.
they lose weight and then you're like,
I liked you when you're fatter.
yeah, you should just go back to being fat.
Was it Al Roker? They were telling him that for the longest time. Like, Al Roker was about to die due to his fat. Like, so you want me to die is what you're saying.
Yeah, as long as you look good.
Alrighty. Would you rather make a balloon animal for everyone that you meet? That's almost as inconvenient as the elderly thing.
Oh, I hate balloons. Yeah, I hate balloons.
What is it you hate about balloons?
I'm scared they're gonna pop. I don't like it when they pop. So
do you watch Two Bears, One Cave, the podcast?
yes,
Um,
with oh my gosh, it's Bert and my very favorite Tom Segura.
Yep. You like Tom? Do you watch all of his Your Mom's House and all that stuff?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I'll occasionally watch the one with his wife.
So that was Christina P. I was talking about
Oh,
with
I
the
didn't
Netflix.
know that was like. I didn't even know that was her. I didn't really know her name. I just know that it's.
Yeah, she's her Netflix dark motherhood stuff. It's called Mother Inferior, and she also has Where's My Mom's At podcast, where she talks about motherhood. Is like, if you go to Instagram, all these moms are so happy that they're mothers. We're like, a lot of moms, like, it sucks being a mom. Like, I'm breastfeeding at 2:00 in the morning. Like, all like, she talks about the darker side of that.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to watch that because I feel like that all the time. I'm like, people with kids lie. Like, they totally lie because, like my best friend, she lives in a high rise in San Francisco. She's single. She doesn't have any ties, nothing. She can just take naps.
Yeah.
Like Free Willy, just naps whenever. And I'm like, you know what? You should do? You should have kids. Because I want her to suffer in my misery.
Yeah.
With me. So I feel like growing up, like my whole life, it was just like have kids. And now that I have kids, I'm like, whoa, like this is way different than people made it out to be. Not that I would like send them back, but it's hard.
I was reading, this is a while ago, somebody fell away. I don't think it was the Mormon church, but it was a church that was just like, oh, keeping your virginity, like this huge, big sell on, like, you have to be pure until you get married. And then the enormous letdown of being married, losing your virginity to a like, what if they suck in bed? And basically, like, their push away from religion was like, this has all been a lie just to keep my purity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was really interesting reading
Not
that.
worth it.
Yeah. And this thing, though, too, is like in some like highly conservative things, they have to have sex in order to have children. There's no such thing as recreational sex. So
Yeah.
you get married, get knocked up all within like 72 hours. Like, that's a lot of like patina to take off the fantasy really quickly. Like, I couldn't imagine being thrown into parenthood at 18 or earlier, depending on what church you're in. Like,
Yeah, that whole thing.
That's horrifying.
Is not for me.
That's a lot of reality fucking coming in through the window very fast.
Yeah, I have like a whole joke about that. Like the Mormon couples just like wait so long to get married, you know, and it's this huge deal. And like they get to the honeymoon suite and the girl's like, "Steven, I'm ready for my sexy time." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I came during the ceremony." He's like, "And now I want a divorce." Like it finally happened. No, I want out.
Finally got the tension out of those shoulders.
Yeah.
And now I don't want anything to do with you. Alrighty, so this is the 5th and final of the originals, and then we're going to go to the bonus round of the greatest hits. Okay. So, alrighty, would you rather make a balloon animal for everyone you meet, or bathe every morning with a fire hose? That's pretty intense. Have you seen people get hit by fire hose?
Burn, right? Like,
it more than burns. That fucking hurts.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, my skin would be like fucked up. I feel like you couldn't do anything.
I feel like you'd save a lot of money on loofahs, though. Just taking that fucking upper layer of skin
that glow.
Yeah, that nice red sunburn glow every morning.
I guess I would have to. I guess I'd have to be balloon animals.
That'd be fucking annoying. Same thing.
But you'd get so like good at it, you would just be like, "Here you go," you know.
With every you'd be making like the Taj Mahal with fucking like balloons and everything. It'd be really good.
Yeah. I just don't feel like I could physically stand the fire hose, but
yeah, was it Jackass? I think they hit Johnny Knoxville with a fire hose. It looks fucking painful. Yeah. Like. Alrighty, so the 6th bonus round. These are Would You Rathers that you've already seen. There's some of the greatest hits. We're just going to do one of them here. So, first question is, would you rather everyone talks in front of you as if you're not even there? Which is like, being a stand-up comedian, apparently.
Yeah.
Or would you rather your roommates host nightly orgies in your studio apartment?
Is it weird that I'm debating this?
Well, so the things that I've reflected on. First off, the nightly smell.
Oh, yeah.
Of multiple people having sex. First off, that would be a thing. I hate human smells like that. Second off, the noise. Mm-hmm. You know,
yeah.
You got trying to go to work and just like in the background is going to town. You know. But everyone I don't know. I feel like I am living this would you rather. Everyone talks in front of you as if you're not even there.
Yeah. I guess, I would probably, I do live that for sure.
Just like keep
on
life
a
as
stage
normal.
Too, like in front of like a lot of people. It's not just like casually with a friend. It's like Matt Gabriel in the, on the freaking stage, like saying, repeating words I said to him in private the night before.
Oh.
Like.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, but I can't remember what it was. Like I said something, and then Matt was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to use that," and I was like, "Wait,
could you not?"
I didn't mean it. It's usually something dumb. I say something dumb, or I'm like, "What? What does that mean?" But yeah, so I guess I would probably just go with that. I've never really been in like an orgy situation, so I was like trying to like think it out. Hey, I'm not saying those whatever you thought of was like that's reasonable shit that you should think about. Not from personal experience, just. It's annoying as it is if you have like a roommate like having sex like next to you or like in the room next
and
to you and
multiply that into orgy numbers. What qualifies as an orgy?
I honestly don't know. Like I don't even know really what that means.
Multiple people having sex with each other like crazy. Definition. It's been a weird fucking episode going between orgies and Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, this is a strong thing. Oh wow, it comes from.
Secret ceremony rites held in honor of an ancient Greek or Roman deity and usually characterized by ecstatic singing and dancing. Roman orgies in honor of there's got to be like a certain number of people because
right, like the qualifies.
Yeah, because
of at least 5 members.
Fuck,
that's so many.
Yeah, so you're doing that every night.
Yeah, that's too much. Yeah.
That's too much human smells, too much like, hey man, is there any soda in the fridge?
Especially during COVID. Like, did you guys sanitize before and after? Got it. You have to do like the plastic on the couches, like whatever era that was from, like the 70s, the plastic couch.
The thing is gross with that plastic though is you'd stick to it.
Yeah, the sound coming off of the couch alone would be.
Well, I'm thinking though too, if one person's on top of the other, so somebody's sitting on the couch, you have all that bouncing, and then when you go to come off, you're like, like peeling off. Yeah, there's just so much gross thing. Yeah, I'd rather be ignored. Like the first 34 years of my fucking life. So
True that.
Well, Lou, we are coming up on 10 minutes before you need to get out of here, so we're gonna wrap it up. It was great talking to you. I learned quite a bit there. Hope to see you soon. Just like the Bomb podcast. Hope to see you soon.
Yes,
it's gonna be fun. Before we get off the air here, your handles for your social media.
I think it's just my Instagram is Lou So. That's my name on there. LOU space SO.
What kind of space? Underscore? Or just
no, it's just that's my name. I guess my handle, I don't know. I'm old. My handle would be Loves of Lou. So LOVESOFLOU.
There we
Loves
go.
of Lou.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where you're pushing your shows, pushing all of your creative endeavors. Okay.
Yeah, I have a Facebook too, but it's Louisa Schumacher.
More of like a personal thing.
That's my government name. I want to create like an actual page, like a Luso comedy page.
Okay.
So I'm working on that, but
it's super easy. It's just getting the people to follow.
Right.
But you're way more popular than I am, so.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, let's go.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, my 32 followers have plateaued pretty hard. So
hey, I mean that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is on YouTube when you're doing a podcast. So, if you enjoyed watching Lou, if you enjoyed watching the podcast, there, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment. And there's no real rate system on YouTube, but let's try to get everything out here. I want to get Lou out there. Amazing comedian. Less than 2 years or just over 2 years of experience?
Just 2 years as of like 2 days ago. So
yeah. And like I said, the skill set that I've seen, when was that volleyball set?
That was in like September. It was like the early fall.
Already seeing really good things on that there. So you also bring a crowd too.
I can pack a room.
Yes. It's funny as hell watch when you're talking about the guy blowing himself, that chick that just booked it out of that room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because she was in the joke and she didn't even know she was in the joke. I didn't tell her prior, so she outed herself. I'm like, just sit down and be quiet.
Yeah, literally if she would have just squatted down, it would have been fine. But when you see somebody sprinting for the exit, yeah. Gee, I wonder who that is. So, Lou, it was great talking to you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.